All right. You know this next man from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, because he was the original singer for Cannibal Corpse and lyricist as well. And of course, you know him as the main man from 6 Feet Under, which is what we're going to talk about today. Mr. Chris Barnes, how are you, sir? Death metal legend, I might add.
Good seeing you, Bri. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I mean, this I'm so excited to do this song, by the way, because well, of course I love it, but I also think the whole thing about this podcast, 100 songs that define heavy metal, like what songs define it. And here we are with something that's unique in a lot of different ways. I mean, it's 1995 when metal's supposedly dead, and everybody's like writing it off, and it's never coming back again. But meanwhile, the underground is going completely insane and doing, like, you guys were doing big numbers, and in a large part keeping metal alive. And if it wasn't for bands like 6 Feet Under and Cannibal Corpse, like, who knows what would have happened. And also making things that are so creative too, like this song, which I have many layers that I want to get into about this song in particular. But let me start by saying, so you're in Cannibal Corpse and doing your thing there, and then you have this idea to do something a little bit different. Like, where did that idea come from?
Well, it was really kind of born on the Complete Control tour in '92 that Cannibal Corpse did with Obituary, Malevolent Creation, and Agnostic Front. And it was our first big national U.S. tour that we did. And at that time, there was a side project that um, Trevor from Obituary did with the guys from Napalm Death called Meat Hook Seed. And I thought it was really cool that they kind of combined, both bands and kind of got together and did this side project. So when I got on the tour, and I remember the date it was in August, like beginning part pretty much like the first 2 weeks of the tour, and I'd gotten to talk to Trevor, and I was like, man, I really thought that was a killer side project, and I've been had the idea that I wanted to do a side project at that time as well, and I was going to ask you if you wanted to do it, but you already had something going on. And he was like, "Oh, you should ask Big Alan West. He's got some songs that he's had for a while, and he's looking to do something too." So I hadn't met Alan even on the tour after 2 weeks. He's like, and Trevor just walked me on their bus and went in the back, and Alan was hanging out, and Trevor introduced me to him, and we became friends and started talking. And at that point, I mean, after that tour, I was going back and forth. I was living in Buffalo still. Cannibal was still in Buffalo, so I was going down to Tampa and hanging out with my girlfriend at that time. And there is a small knit community in Tampa as far as the music scene and death metal scene went. So everyone kind of knew each other. And me and Al started just demoing out songs, um, which became Haunted. We started demoing out songs. I'd do vocals on a 4-track in his friend's trailer in some really weird section of Brandon or somewhere. So yeah, so it just started out really kind of like it was just a really like fun thing to do at first, and something to do when I was in Florida and just working on stuff. So it started like that.
It's interesting too, because the thing that I loved about it was it's so different. Like, you were taking death metal and putting it in a completely different area, where before, it was either super heavy, a lot of double kicks, and fast, or very thrashy. And that was, the music was always very heavy, but in a kind of faster, thrashy, or even heavier mode that death metal became. But this was different. This was slower, kind of more traditional metal. And I get that with the music, but then the vocals on top of that became that way where it was so much more melodic, and you're singing a little bit slower, you can understand what you're saying, and the again melodicy, or I don't think that's a word, but
The
the way that
melodicism.
yeah, melodicism, there you go, of the vocals were really, really interesting to me. It's like something I'd never heard at all in the death metal scene. I was like, wow, this is really cool, and this is very different. Up until that time, I don't think anybody done anything like that.
Well, I think I started to enunciate and pronounce my lyrics within my vocals during the writing of the bleeding. Uh, I changed up my vocal style. The music changed a little bit. It wasn't so chon 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 chon. It was a little more musical, a little more technical. So I didn't feel like that really deep guttural vocal approach with, the unintelligible vocals. I think now people can understand those vocals a little more and hear the lyrics in them. But then it was really foreign to people how I started that whole vocal sound. So like when the bleeding was being written, I was trying to place the vocals in a spot within the music like I always did, but make it more make it more for normal people to be able to understand the lyrics.
Yeah.
And and really most of the lyrics for the songs on Haunted, I think everything but maybe 4 songs were written immediately, like after I finished writing the bleeding. Like I started writing the rest of the songs for Haunted like 5 minutes after I finished that album. So it kind of transferred over in that the music on Haunted and that the 6 Feet Under stuff then was, like you said, more rhythmic and less riffy and like fast riffy. It was more like, slow, kind of doomy, but rhythmic. And I felt like the vocals had to be intelligible for that, but still heavy. So I kind of just I kind of work that way anyways. With I just really want the vocals to match what I feel the music needs, and just kind of ice the cake with it, with the vocal sound. So, and it's challenging to do that. And I never wanted to like just stay in one place. But yeah, I think it's like you said, more kind of a traditional sound and a little bit more melodic to the music.
Big time. And again, we're talking 1995, and I think that's really important to mention because of where music was in 1995. And the other interesting thing about certainly this record and 16 Under in general was you were kind of following, I don't want to say following, but you were doing what kind of was happening in 90s with heavy music, like no leads, just a lot of rhythm stuff, a very melodic stuff. And especially for death metal, this was, again, this record in particular, I mean, it's super groundbreaking in the fact that you've just done so many different things on it that have again led to not only death metal but a lot of bands that have done stuff after that, and again holding up this torch in 1995, which was very difficult. And I remember being in the studio making the record, and it was easy. It was a really easy record to make because you guys just, there's a nice chemistry going between the band, and just the music flowed really well. It was pretty simple. Of course, Scott Burns is, legendary engineer, and made it all sound really good. But it was easy for me because all the stuff that I produced before that, I never produced any death metal stuff, but I produced all the early '80s metal stuff, and this was kind of the same thing, just without guitar solos, more or less, which was the thing in the mid '90s.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like even in Cannibal, man, we didn't every song didn't have a guitar solo. So like it was kind of like it was different, a different approach to metal. And I think that's really what helped kind of keep metal going. I mean, it was a different form of metal. It was exciting. It was a little more new. And you did, I think you did. People don't want to call Slayer death metal, but without Slayer, there probably wouldn't be death metal. So, I mean, that was really the early beginnings of it. So you had you were producing some pretty amazing stuff back then, man. And I wanted your help because I had always admired you
Yeah, I appreciate
and
that.
still do,
Yeah,
So
same here. Those were all those records we did were a blast,
yeah.
super blast. But I want to delve into this song in particular because I just love this song so much, and it's it's one of the top. Whenever you look on any list or Spotify or whatever, this is always one of the top songs from 6 Feet Under. But it's really interesting. I hadn't listened to it for a while. Listening to it again, I just like the dynamics of the song where everything kind of builds up. There's a guitar, and then there's another guitar, and the bass, and the drums, and the vocals kick in. It's this real natural thing. And again, the vocals for me on this were probably the most melodic thing that I had heard in any death metal prior to this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I like this tune a lot, and it the storytelling too within this song is
Yes.
pretty cool, and it's an idea I had for a long time. I mean, probably going back to like '86. The lyrics for this song. So
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question too about this. So in the song, because obviously the song is about werewolf, and werewolf is one of the early terms is lycanthrope.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you mentioned you sing in some of lycanthrope, but then the song is also called Lycanthropy, which is also kind of the lycanthrope is the werewolf, but I guess lycanthropy is the mental.
The disease of
Yeah,
becoming a werewolf. Yeah. So
that
yeah, or the
dichotomy is really interesting.
affliction. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but it was
So
I'm assuming that was done intentionally.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like what it is, right? Because it's like someone becoming a werewolf, and just the classic um horror. I mean, that's one of the earliest horror movies, right? Is the werewolf or the wolf man. So and I always loved the movie American Werewolf in London. I thought that was such a great movie. I still watch it. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's a
so
classic.
yeah. So maybe that inspired it a little bit. It's just like the part where he's in the apartment going through the changes from man to werewolf. You know.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too that I find with a lot of your lyrics, but specifically this song too, is just you paint this picture so well. Like you can really like when I listen to it, you can see it all happening in your head because it's so pronounced the way the story is and how it's told and the sequence it's told, and it becomes very visual for me and certainly a lot of people. Like, how is it? I guess the question I would ask is like how when you're doing these lyrics and trying to paint these pictures, how I guess it's just a gift maybe, I don't know, but you're able to like paint these pictures, that people can actually see the lyrics as opposed to just listening to it.
Well, sorry about that. I don't have control over the airways, but
Yeah,
I'm outside because I'm trying to enjoy the weather in Seattle here before it turns to black.
yeah, I hear you.
But yeah, I mean, I've always liked I've always liked storytelling and well written um, books or stories or that kind of just immerse you into what's being talked about or told to you. And I don't know, maybe it just I've learned to kind of do that for myself when I'm writing, is like make myself feel what I'm talking about. So I don't know, I've just I like doing that, and it's that's challenging to me as well, is to make it feel like you're actually able to be there when you're reading it or listening to the lyrics.
Yeah, and you are of course hailed as, one of the original death metal singers, and a lot of people look up to you as to your singing style and how you created it and invented it, because it was quite a bit different from a lot of the other death metal singers. I, I've always asked this for guys that sing like this. Like, where does that come from? How do you learn that? And especially when you were first starting out, because it wasn't like there was a whole host of people that you could say, oh yeah, all these people are doing it.
No, they were doing a different style of death metal vocals. They were doing the stuff that was inspired by Jeff Becerra and Possessed. Like Chuck actually took his vocal approach from that style of death metal singing, and built upon it. And I didn't have that tone to my voice, and I didn't have the ability to sing like Jeff Tate or Rob Halford or anybody like that. So it was really like time, a lot of time behind the mic, and kind of like finding my way with time, like 3 hours a day, almost mostly 7 days a week for like 3 5 years, every single day. And it was just zeroing in on a sound that I heard from the music I was singing to, like the guitar distortion. And I just wanted to like harmonize or blend that sound I was hearing in my head and in the room together, in the rehearsal space. And so it was really time that um reinforced and gave me the ability to do that. And that's how I kind of invented that guttural vocal sound. Um, it really started at the end of Eaten Back to Life, when the last song on that album that we wrote was Buried in the Backyard. And I think that's the start of that for me. And then it progressed after that, where the music became a lot heavier after Eating Back to Life, for Butchered at Birth. So I uh, I really zeroed in on that feel and that sound and tone.
Yeah, and then you get into 6 Feet Under, and kind of it's a whole different style and a whole different tone, and it's clearly the same singer. You can tell it's the same singer, but I just noticed, especially being in the studio and working with you, it's like how different that is, and how this is what people ask, because I understand that not everybody's a fan of death metal. A lot of people don't understand or get the vocals, and they asked me the question. I mean, you can ask me the question about, if you're not a metalhead in period, about any sort of metal, but what's the difference, between a good band and not such a good band and all these death metal bands? It's melody. It's the same thing with Slayer in the early days. It's melody. Like there's melody there, and there's melody in Cannibal Corpse, but there's certainly so much melody in not only this song, but in all the 6 Feet Under records you guys made. There's so much melody and classic heavy metal riffs, and it's like classic heavy metal with just a little heavier vocal on it, which is why I always thought that was really cool. And what you guys did with 6 Feet Under was so different than anything else.
Yeah, yeah, and it just really following that riff and following the vibe of the sound of the music and where I was at that point. And that's true. I mean, a lot of people, especially then, didn't understand the death metal vocal style. And you got that a lot in the press when people reviewed stuff that I was doing. They were like, killer music, but I don't understand the vocalist, what he's saying at all, you know? So, um, I listen to criticism. I always have. I mean, no matter if it bothers me or not, but I kind of understood that something maybe needed to be adjusted and to make it more accessible to like regular metalheads, you know. So, and I like that it was challenging to me, and I I just I dig that people like what I've done now. I mean, it's very it's very nice to hear compliments and stuff like that. So
Well, it's always interesting, I noticed that as, same thing for me, like as you get older, like say more and more people have more respect for you just because you're still around after all this time. Well, if they're still doing it this late, it must be still pretty good, right?
yeah, yeah, there's still people that tend to like not like me too. So I mean, that makes me feel like I'm still doing something right. So I mean,
Hey, any reaction, you want to have a reaction, right? I talk a lot about like for a band, for example, like Ghost. It's you love it or hate it, and that's kind of what you want. You want a reaction, like the reaction, like it's okay. That's
right,
not what you want to hear. You want to hear like either oh my god, this is great, or oh my god, I hate it. So
right, yeah.
it's I sort of get that sort of thing.
It's like
Uh,
any type of art, right? I mean, even a painting that an artist does, it's just like it might really upset one person, and then some person might look at it and be like really amazed by it. So like, that's very true, is you don't want it someone to just look and walk past it,
yeah,
you know.
exactly,
It
exactly.
has to give you some kind of a reaction. I mean, great art makes you it forces you to think and have internal dialogue, or dialogue with people, that or don't know.
100%, and it kind of goes back to the famous story about Frank Zappa seeing Alice Cooper for the first time in at the Whiskey in L.A. And they went on and cleared the room in 5 minutes because it was so weird and bizarre and over the top. And Frank Zappa goes, "If they can clear a room in 5 minutes, I want to sign them because that's a reaction. Like it's hard to do that."
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that's all that stuff is amazing. So funny story, by the way. I have to tell you this because it's kind of been haunting my life the last week or two. But my girlfriend's got a 13-year-old daughter, and her 13-year-old daughter and her three other 13-year-old friends have just recently discovered Cannibal Corpse. It's now their favorite band. They now worship them. So
Nice.
how unusual is it to hear that all these 13-year-old girls are now obsessed with Cannibal Corpse?
That's
All
wild.
these
Yeah.
yeah, hey, next generation, right? It's just kind of funny out of the blue, and I didn't have anything to do with it at all. So they just found it TikTok, like all these kids find out all this stuff is through TikTok. So it's pretty insane. You guys are working on some new music as always. So give us a little bit of an update on what's going on there.
Oh yeah, well the new album's done. I finished vocals last week down in Miami at the Hit Factory, or Criteria. It's hard to not say the Hit Factory because it
I
was
know, right?
right. It was the Hit Factory through all those years that we were there, and then they reverted back to Criteria, which is the it's the ultimate uh, studio. I mean, everything you could probably say more things that weren't there. It's easier to say than
Yeah,
everything has ever been done there. So I love it there. It was great, and so it's a really interesting album. I said it before. I mean, well, me and Jack wrote the songs on this. He actually again wrote. Well, this time he wrote half of the lyrics on the album. I wrote the other half, and that's been really interesting for me too, to collaborate as a lyricist with someone.
I would talk about Jack Owen
Yeah,
from early
yeah,
Cannibal Corpse.
yes, yes. So me and Jack collaborated on, Eating Back to Life, on Shredded Humans, and his writing style and his storytelling is very immersive as well. And I love the way Jack writes. I mean, he's been a really amazing addition to 6 Feet Under as far as progressing the band and keeping things interesting. So this album, it encompasses just a lot of everything we've done. I mean, even going back to Haunted, there are some songs that are very rhythmic and I think more on the simple, straightforward side. And then there's like some songs are very thrashy, which kind of came into play on the last album on Killing for Revenge, where they're more thrashy bass type of death metal. And and then there's like some songs. One of the songs really reminds me of like something we would have done on The Bleeding when I was in Cannibal Corpse, when we were both in Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
So it's really really cool, and I think we're gonna get it. We haven't mixed the album yet. That starts next month in November. Well, Mark Lewis is gonna be mixing this album, so
Awesome.
going to be working with him again. We haven't worked with him since Undead and Unborn.
And
So,
we all know Mark on this show because he's one of the main guys that we talk to about production. So he's our audience is very familiar with Mark.
yeah, and I really liked his mix that he did on not the new. He did the new Dying Fetus record, but the last one, I was really really a fan of that, and we actually reconnected on 6 Feet Under's tour earlier this past year, and was January, February 2025 here, when we were in Nashville, and we talked backstage, and we had a really good conversation. So it was sticking with me for a few months after that. Like, man, I just really loved that production he did on the Fetus album, and it'd be great to work with him again. So I kind of connected with him after that tour, a couple months after, and he was like, "Oh man, I'm down. Let's do this." So he's really open to explore the production and the mix in an interesting way. So that complements these songs because they are very diverse from each other. And I don't like blanket productions. I think I mentioned to you, I was like years ago, I was like, how come a song one song can't have one production like with a different snare sound, for instance, that and why can't that song have another sound to it on the same album? And I understand there has to be some cohesiveness throughout the album, but I'm a big fan of making each song its own like entity. So I mean we're not going to go so far with it like that, but I've always respected uh, bands and albums that and producers that have been able to do that and not just do a blanket production, and to
I
make
think
it
it's
sound more organic, I guess,
yeah, and I think it's easier to do that now too because
Yeah, yeah. The
songs
technology, yeah,
technology there. The songs come out, and songs come out at different parts, and people listen to music in different ways. They're not particularly listening to the whole record in its entirety
that's
sometimes. So
true. That's true.
it
That's
kind of
yeah.
kind of works. So one last thing I wanted to ask you. So you've worked with two absolute music icons with 6 Feet Under, Ice T and Iggy Pop. What was
Yes.
that like?
A lot of people don't know that Iggy Pop did a guest appearance on Death Rituals on the song Shot in the Head. I mean, so like they're like, "Oh, I thought that was you on that voice recording." I'm like, "No, no, thank you, but no." It's probably, in my opinion, the greatest front man of all time. That was incredible, and such a genuine, nice person. You obviously, we sat in the studio with Iggy after that was done when we were doing another album, and he came in and we were all talking, and he was just such a genuine, kind person, and he still is. So that was incredible for me. Just, you know, when we asked him, Chris Carroll asked him, was like, you know, would we be interested? And he's like, I don't know, let me call him and ask him. And he was like, Iggy's in. That's what I remember Chris Carroll's telling us. And we were like, oh my God. But yeah, it was great. A great like experience doing that, and different too. It wasn't like a vocal part where he was singing in the song. He's an actor as well. And I've been a fan of like the parts that he's done in movies like the Jim Jarmusch film Dead Man. Uh, that was just a really cool scene when he was in that. So I always had that in the back of my head. I'd, you know, like to do something like that. But really interesting working with him on that in that way. And then with Ice, that was cool, man, because you asked me, you were like, when we were getting ready to do go in the studio for True Carnage, we were in rehearsals, and you said, is there anybody that you'd like to collaborate with? And I just said Ice T. And I didn't think, like, I was like, I'm just gonna go right for the top here. It's not a doubt it'll ever happen. And we got an email from Ice's manager, and there again, Ice is in. And it was just like, what? Like, okay, cool, man. And so I wrote the lyrics for that song, One Bullet Left, and I left the spots where I wanted him to come in and sing. And it's pretty wild, man. I mean, we went to the Hit Factory, New York, me and you,
Yep.
and went to meet him. And what a wild, like, few hours that was. I mean, from the minute of him walking down the sidewalk and meeting us, and I had met him before. I had met him in '94 when we played Milwaukee Metal Fest. I was at the airport uh, picking up my girlfriend, waiting for her to get off the plane, and Ice walked up to me and he was like, "You're Chris Barnes." And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You're Ice T," you know? He's like, "Man, I'm listening to your stuff. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. I'm getting it. I get it, man. I fucking love it." Or, you know, I don't know exactly what he said. It was along those lines. And it's like, man, I listen to your stuff. You know, OG is my favorite, you know, rap album. I was like, I love it. I mean, I listened to that album 24 hours straight for probably 2 years. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorites. So, um, when we got in the studio in New York for him to record his vocal parts for One Bullet Left, it was really kind of magical, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we were out in the lot in the green room or in whatever lounge, and he went in to start recording his stuff, and he didn't even have anything written. I mean, we sent him a tape of it, and he came to the studio with nothing, and he went into the studio, wrote the lyrics, and recorded it. We were sitting there, and it, it was like, oh, he's almost done. You got to get in there and listen to this. I'm like, it was like within like 10 minutes.
It was fast. Yeah, it was really fast.
It was wild, man. So I couldn't really wrap my head around how he did that, but that that like rap that he does during the vocal part that he does during One Bullet Left is, to me, like one of the most amazing things I've ever heard. I can't even believe that we were a part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so work with Ice and working with Iggy, it just really, really, really memorable points in my career.
Yeah, it was both amazing. Real quickly, I first time I met Ice, I was we were at Warner Brothers at the same time, and we were at I think it was a WIA convention, some sort of convention, and somebody walks over to me and says, "Ice-T wants to talk to you." I'm like, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, a little
Did I
intimidating
do
there.
something wrong? What happened? I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I walked over there. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm a huge fan of what you do, and all this stuff." And he loved, obviously, mentioned Cannibal Corpse, and loved all the stuff they were doing. I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is kind of crazy." I said, "Well, likewise." And that was right around that. I think it was right around the cop killer thing too. So we were kind of dealing with the censorship thing over there and stuff. But he was just awesome, and still is super awesome. Well,
Oh
dude,
yeah.
thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. It was amazing, of course. And yeah, I'm sure we'll see you soon somewhere.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Bri. It's been great talking to you as always, man.
Thanks, man. All right, you
Yeah,
can't
dude.
leave. We have to upload